This is the internet's most hated husband. His name is Andrew Min, and for the past few weeks, he's been going viral for doing nothing. Literally. It all started when his wife Sarah Kim, an influencer with over 500,000 subscribers on YouTube and nearly 3 million followers on TikTok, made a 7-episode podcast titled At Home with Hoemgirl.
Ready?
They discussed how they met, how he proposed, talked about the ups and downs of their marriage, finances, and their upcoming baby. But little did she know, this podcast would be one of the worst decisions of her life because it resulted in her husband receiving an extraordinary amount of backlash on the internet, with people calling him a lazy, unemployed, narcissistic bum who does nothing but play video games all day, while Sarah works 2 jobs, does the housework, all while being pregnant. But it doesn't end there, because a week after the backlash began, Sarah posted a response that did not go the way she intended, with people now turning against her by blocking her, saying that she's delusional for wanting to stay with Andrew. This story is very messy and created a lot of outrage in people who share similar experiences in relationships of their own and can relate to Sarah. But it's a story clouded by a lot of misinformation, which has turned into one giant online game of broken telephone. And this has been unfair for not only Andrew, but Sarah, who's pregnant and has to deal with the stress accompanied by thousands of people commenting nasty things across their social media. At first, this video was simply gonna be me just talking trash about this man, but after I took the time to watch the podcast and hear Sarah's response, my view on the situation completely changed. So if you like relationship drama, then buckle in, because this is an interesting one and there's a lot to learn from it. So before we get into the podcast and some of the viral TikToks that started this whole controversy, it's important to know who Sarah Kim is and what made her popular on social media. During COVID, when there was literally nothing to do, she started uploading silly TikToks, many of them with her family. And I'm sure we can all relate to those times when we were stuck at home, trapped in a room, bored out of our mind. It's when I decided to make a TikTok account, and honestly, looking back, I posted some very cringy ones.
Google Slides. Google Slides. Google Slides Slides. Google Slides Slides and Google Slides. Google Slides Slides on a slide and Google Slide.
Oh my god, bro.
Okay, don't judge me. It was a different time back then, alright? Anyways, so what really blew up Sarah's social media, and probably her washroom as well, were her TikToks making kimchi and other Korean foods with her mother.
엄마, 우리 오늘 뭐 만들어요?
오징어 볶음.
Thank you.
People came to love not only her and her cooking, but her family as well, who are very sweet people. Sarah started to include her husband more often in her videos, where they film many cute and silly TikToks together. So the question is, how did wholesome content filled with positive comments turn into comments like, "This is not a love story, this is a horror story"? Love story? Spreading awareness? It all started when Sarah decided to create a 7-part podcast with her husband Andrew so that she can share her love story to the world. The podcast, titled At Home with Hoemgirl, discusses their past and their journey as a couple from when they first started dating to marriage to the present day. The two have been together for about 7 years, but they got married in February 2021 and currently have a baby on the way. If you take a look at the early comments from when the podcast was first released, you'll see people praising their relationship as goals and seeing no complaints. But a few weeks ago, things started to change as people began dissecting the episodes of the podcast, which resulted in red flags flying everywhere. People have not been loving what they're hearing about Sarah's life and are disgusted with her husband, who feel that Sarah is providing so much for this man and he's contributing nothing. One person made a TikTok saying, "Me after going down a rabbit hole of that influencer who commutes an hour to work a 9-to-5 job, is pregnant and manages to film content every day. Meanwhile, her unemployed husband sits around playing video games all day. He doesn't help and spends her money and talks shit about her behind her back." Another person said, "Going down the rabbit hole of a woman who works a 5 to 9 before her 9 to 5, then comes home to clean and she's pregnant, while her husband, who's 8 years older than her, does nothing. Hit him with your car, sis. Say I did it." So as you can see, people don't just dislike Andrew, they hate him with a passion. It's episode 5 in particular, titled Marriage is Hard, that really grinded people's gears. They talk about moving in together, their first days of marriage, and the struggles that came along with it, including finances. They discussed how 2 weeks before their marriage, he purchased a PC and a big monitor.
And I was excited to play games on a PC that I haven't had a PC in like 20 plus years.
And keep in mind that this was months into COVID, which was a very different time when people were stuck at home, bored out of their minds. So the PC didn't arrive until right before the honeymoon ended, so it was waiting for him when he got home. And when he did get home, he was hyped to reconnect with old friends and play some video games. But here's the catch: he set it up in their bedroom, and the first night they got home, he started playing around 10 p.m. A few hours go by, it's 1 a.m. and he is still playing. Sarah was having a difficult time sleeping due to the bright lights and the mouse clicking, but she wanted to respect the fact that Andrew was having fun with his friends.
And so I go to the living room and I'm like trying to look for a place to sleep so that I can at least sleep. And I find our love seat, which is a little 2-person couch that we use in our dining table. So I literally just laid on our love seat. Thank God I'm small enough to fit. and use it as a bed.
And just wait to hear how long Andrew was playing video games for until we finally realized that Sarah had left the room to sleep out in the living room.
I get woken up by Andrew, and I don't know what time it is. I'm disoriented. He goes, "My love, how long were you out here for?" And I open my eyes, and the sun is out. This man is 1, awake, 2, didn't know I was out here till the sun came out. Must have been 7 a.m.
It took him 6 hours to realize that his wife left the bedroom because she couldn't sleep due to all that noise, which was extremely unfair for her. And this left the internet with a terrible impression on him. Even more so when the internet came to realize that Andrew is unemployed. In the podcast, they discussed finances, and Sarah said how a man should be a provider or at least a contributor to the household. But realistically, she would be making a lot more than Andrew ever will.
No matter how many times I can double, triple, quadruple your income, I still need a financial provider. Or contributor.
Andrew's been involved with the church and has been a pastor, which for him is not about the money. Their bar for financial security was very different, with Andrew's being significantly lower than Sarah's.
Andrew's bar is down here, and that gap of feeling secure financially was what caused a lot of tension.
Yeah.
And as more clips from the podcast and other TikToks started to go viral, it continued to get worse and worse for Andrew. Sarah shared a few TikToks showing what her morning routine looks like before she goes to work her 9-to-5 corporate job. She's got a long commute. She could be seen driving for about 20 minutes to catch the train, and then the train ride, which is just over an hour itself. And keep in mind that during those travel TikToks, Sarah was in her first trimester, so it definitely was not easy for her. In the videos, you can see Sarah driving herself, which gave people an even worse impression of Andrew, with comments like pregnant, tired, working 2 jobs, and wakes up super early just for the guy to sit at home. Andrew should drive you so you can rest in the car on the way there. These videos gave off the impression that Andrew was inattentive to his wife, and what further supported that belief is a TikTok she shared looking at her first ultrasound photos, where we discovered that Andrew missed the ultrasound. What kind of husband and what kind of father misses their baby's first ultrasound? And get this, apparently the reason that Andrew missed the ultrasound was because he was at a boys trip paid for by his wife. But it gets even worse when a clip from a sermon that he did 8 months ago went viral. During the sermon, Andrew makes some edgy jokes, but a lot of people were not impressed with the way he was talking about his wife.
There's this person who lives in my house, and she cackles every time I'm speaking in Korean. I'm trying my best, but she loves to laugh at me, and not just laugh at me, but point it out and be like, "What did you just say? Can you say that again?" It can be difficult. It's cruel, right? What kind of cruel person does this?
So with all this combined, the internet's current impression of Andrew is that he's a lazy, unemployed bum who can't even drive his own pregnant wife to work and talk shit about her behind her back while playing video games all night long. And to put the cherry on top, he proposed to Sarah using his mom's wedding ring. And you might be thinking, but Ivan, that sounds so sweet. And yes, it would be sweet if the wedding ring wasn't from his mom, who divorced with his father, which ended terribly.
I wasn't making much money. I'm not someone who was financially super stable, but I did want it to be really meaningful. And what I did was I asked my mom if I could use her wedding ring, because my parents are divorced. They had a painful ending to their marriage.
So all this is what ultimately led to Sarah getting an onslaught of comments over the past couple weeks of people talking trash about her husband and begging her to leave him. But what if I told you that a lot of what Andrew is getting hated for is a combination of misinformation and people simply hearing what they want to hear? And like I said, at first this video was going to be me simply just hating on Andrew and just spilling on the tea, but after taking the time to do some research, this has turned into one giant game of online broken telephone. And I'm not saying that Andrew's a good guy. There definitely are some things that are questionable and raises some concern, but he's not a bad guy either. As my guy Reacher says, in an investigation, details matter and assumptions get you killed. Before the viral hate that's been going on the past few weeks, people love this couple. But what's happening now is that people are using the comments as their news source and are only seeing a fraction of clips without context, which has resulted in a certain narrative being constructed. Recently, Sarah posted a response to the entire situation, so I'm going to break it down and discuss key parts of the podcast that have been left out, because I think it's important to get the full picture before making assumptions about this couple. It's important to remember that the podcast discusses from the day they met and first started dating 7 years ago to the present day. A lot of what they're talking about occurred several years ago. They're discussing conflicts and how they rose through them. The idea that Andrew sits at home playing video games all day is simply inaccurate. It all came from that clip you saw earlier where Andrew bought his PC after their honeymoon. The only talk about gaming came from that one episode, which occurred during COVID, which was a very different time and we were stuck at home, bored out of our minds.
I think everybody was rotting and binging during COVID.
In the podcast, Andrew recognizes how dumb it was and feels ashamed to have been playing until 7 a.m.
Yeah, it was just like that COVID time too, you know, where people were just our lifestyles all got a little bit shameful, you know? No, I screwed up big time.
Our relationship has gotten much healthier with you gaming. Well, you don't really game as much, so that might have been what it took.
Yeah.
And we're not in COVID anymore, where we're just stuck at home. Yeah, and bored.
Many people are forgetting that event occurred during COVID, a time when everyone was addicted to their technology because there was nothing else to do. But the internet made that one isolated event out to be an everyday occurrence, which is simply not true. The entire point of them sharing that with the viewers is how it was an early conflict in their relationship where they learned a lot about being a husband and wife and helped them develop strategies to deal with any potential issues in the future.
But it made us kind of like see, how we deal with issues is going to be important for us.
And what people don't realize that this was just one particular event that they were talking about. It was not a regular occurrence. But people took that short clip and projected it as an everyday occurrence that still happens 5 years later when COVID is no longer a thing. There's also a bunch of comments that say Andrew missed Sarah's first ultrasound because he was on a boys trip, some of which say that Sarah actually paid for it, which again is just untrue.
A very sweet and intimate moment where Andrew and I are taking a look at our very first ultrasound in the parking lot of our hospital has somehow become a story of he's at a boys trip and so missed my ultrasound. When in reality, he came straight to the hospital as soon as his scheduled job interview had ended, hoping to make the appointment.
Even Sarah doesn't know where the boys trip narrative came from. The only discussion of a boys trip was when Andrew attended a bachelor party for one of his friends, years before Andrew gave her his whipped cream. Andrew hadn't even proposed to Sarah yet. When he was on that boys trip, Sarah's father called Andrew to finally give him his blessing so that he could marry his daughter.
And then one day, when I was actually on a trip with my friends, it was a bachelor party, I got the phone call and he called and my heart dropped. It was me. He said, and I've come to trust you and I see you as somebody who's dependable, who's honest, who's sincere, who's committed. And I just was like tearing up and I was like, wow, thank you so much. And he said, I want to give you my blessing to propose to my daughter.
So as you can see, another narrative about their relationship completely misunderstood. People assume that Andrew didn't want to be at the ultrasound, that he'd rather spend his time with the boys. But the reality is he was trying to find work and was at a scheduled job interview. The people hate him because he doesn't have a job, so he goes to try to find a job, and people hate him for that too. Now, as for the wedding ring, I do think it's a bad move to propose to your true love with your mom's divorced wedding ring. The aura of that ring is ruined, and personally, something I would never do. And if I were a woman, I mean, I would not like that. But to each their own, because in the podcast, Sarah said that she couldn't have asked for the proposal to have gone any differently.
I couldn't have asked for my proposal to have gone differently. Like, truly, it was perfect. I think I have a video.
It's a beautiful pond.
So little did I know, my boyfriend, now fiance, proposed to me.
Sarah, if you believe in love, famously, the fairy tale is true. Right? So, to the fairy tale.
So with that being said, although you as an individual might not like the way he proposed to her, he is marrying Sarah, not you. What matters is what Sarah wants, what makes her happy, not what you as the viewer want. Okay, so now we get into the good part, Andrew's job situation. That's really the main thing going on here. People view him as a lazy, unemployed bum, you know, making no money and just leeching off of Sarah. Everyone's belief is that Andrew is unemployed and has been for many years. I looked up his Facebook, and according to that, he worked at New Song Church from 2017 to June 2020, and then from September 2020 to February 2023, worked at Collide City Church. It's currently March 2025, so that Facebook information is accurate, then there's a 2-year age gap where he did not work. However, it was likely just not updated because in late 2023 and as recent as 8 months ago, he was seen on Beloved Church's YouTube channel where he did sermons on live stream. But in the podcast, Andrew did say that he had to leave his job due to some complicated issues.
I went through a pretty messy, ugly situation and had to leave my job, you know, because of some craziness, some ethical issues from leadership. I was having a hard time finding a job, and I spent some time kind of reevaluating my own career.
But just because Andrew had a period of time where he was without a full-time job, it doesn't mean he just sat at home all day doing nothing.
So I was like, hey, I'll help you build it. So I helped you build that.
Thank you.
You know, and then I was also like working part-time and had some other gigs
Yeah, you
going
were
on.
freelancing more so at the time.
Yeah. While I was trying to figure out what's my next step in career.
In episode 7, Sarah discusses how a few years ago she got laid off and it took her for 8 to 12 months to finally land another job. This is also something she discussed in her response video.
Andrew and I, from the very beginning, we have committed to being there for each other and supporting each other through anything and everything. And so even in the beginning of our marriage, I've had long periods of time where I didn't have a job. Andrew was the one who had fully supported us through that. And so in the season where Andrew's in between jobs, I am more than happy to stand by him. And even through this transition, he did everything that he could to make sure that we're taken care of. Whether that's from picking up part-time jobs, freelance gigs, helping me with all the back end of my social media platforms, and along with finishing his master's. And right now, he's working a full-time job that he very much loves.
Now, around the same time that Sarah blew up on social media, I believe during the viral kimchi videos, Andrew's job situation changed. There's an idea going around that Andrew's leeching off Sarah's fame and success, but in the podcast, he says that his friends suggest that he continues to help Sarah's social media behind the scenes, but Andrew expressed he wanted to build his own career.
And then people were like, maybe you should just, stick to this social media and commit to it. But, both of us were just like, no, I think we both want to have our careers.
Andrew is currently working, and based on all this info about their job history, it seems that the couple does a very good job at navigating through each other's struggles. For years, they have been with each other, supporting each other, navigating through the thick and thin. They don't run away when one is in a rough phase, and that's something I admire about this couple. So the belief that Andrew is a lazy, unemployed bum who plays video games all night long and leeches off his wife's fame and money is one that's founded upon misinformation through the comment section. This drama has been unfair to not only Andrew, but Sarah, who is pregnant, working a 9 to 5, and is already facing enough stress in her life, and now has to deal with more stress with thousands and thousands of people talking bad about the love of her life. People have been leaving some nasty comments on her social media, accusing Andrew of some horrible, absolutely horrible things. And for a pregnant woman to be reading all of this, already going through enough stress as it is working a 9 to 5, it's terrible. Again, I'm not saying that Andrew is a great person. I don't know him personally, but based off of the comments that I've read and actually listening to the podcast, understanding how they are talking about the conflicts in their life. Every relationship goes through issues, ups and downs. And that was the point of Sarah's podcast, to discuss all the struggles that this couple has went through over the years and how they moved past those struggles and are now a better husband and wife because of it. Yes, maybe Andrew has done some wrong, and there are some things which he has done or said which definitely are questionable, like the sermon, some of the jokes that he said. I don't know, they're a little, One positive thing about this situation is hopefully for a lot of people, it has made them aware of what makes a good spouse and how to improve as a spouse. It shows that communication and working together as a team to find a positive outcome that works for both parties is extremely important. Anyways, I want to know what you all think about this, so leave a comment down below and let me know what your thoughts about this whole situation is, the relationship, all of the drama, and all the misinformation going around. If you enjoyed my coverage on this topic, please leave a like on this video and subscribe if you haven't already, but that's officially gonna do it. So until next time, it's been IvanSteff.